do to keep yourself warm is rub your hands together like this. Just rub it together. That friction keeps it warm. And then, you guys are cold?
Super cold.
How many times have you heard people, well, mostly conservatives, say things like, the black community needs to do better?
There are still going to be problems in black communities. We need to address that as well.
The black community needs to keep kids in schools.
African American youth, I mean, to a point where they've just about never done more poorly.
The black community needs to do more for the youth to help prevent black-on-black crime.
The big loser in the Baltimore situation is the African American community in that city and nationwide.
A hell of a lot, right? But let me ask you, how many times have you heard those same people say, oh my god, black kids in Baltimore are freezing in class, while schools are closed, forcing kids to remain at home as a result of deteriorated state funding in predominantly black schools? About as much as you'd hear Donnie say, let's not tweet irrationally, right? Couldn't have Fox News shift the focus from Hillary's emails, got to stay up to date with the breaking news. So I ask, where is the outrage over what happened yesterday in Baltimore, where kids were literally turned away from school and out onto the streets because for some reason state funding was misdirected and schools were left with the option of teaching kids in freezing temperatures or closing the schools altogether. In a heartbreaking video posted by former NFL football player come teacher at A. Hinson Elementary, Aaron Mabin gave an insight into his freezing classroom on Wednesday.
You had frostbite yesterday?
Mabin's young students explained how cold they were, wrapped up as if they were trying to climb Mount fucking Everest while learning their ABCs. And this was just one of 60 different complaints reported from schools in Baltimore facing heating problems that left children shivering. And here's the facts conservatives won't tell you when blaming black-on-black crime for everything. Since 2009, Baltimore City schools have lost out on roughly $66 million in state funding for much-needed repairs after approved projects ran afoul of state regulation. That money could have funded dozens of new heating systems at schools where the heat is now failing. Oh, but don't worry, it's not all schools in Baltimore, of course not. Other school systems, such as predominantly white Baltimore County and Montgomery County, which boast median income of around $60,000 plus a year with substantially lower poverty rates and are far better funded by their county governments. They have money up front to fund repairs to their buildings. They then ask for the state for reimbursement. Baltimore City, however, whose local government contributes much less for repairs, is forced to estimate the future cost of projects. And that results in mistakes and mismanagement, like, say, $30 million in state funding the city was required to return to the state this year alone. Oh no, that money wasn't spent addressing the issues of the deteriorating school buildings, but given back with no issues resolved, leaving inner city kids to pay the price of government mismanagement by freezing in school. And this is a problem. When conservatives or the damn president talk about the state of Baltimore, within 15 seconds they're already talking about problems within the black community. Whenever police brutality is talked about in the city, a city that has already proven to have issues of discriminatory policing, the responsibility still falls on the black community. This is their problem. Their kids are on the streets. But yet here we are, with schools closing and kids in lower income areas literally being kept home, denied access to an essential mechanism that strengthens communities and keeps kids off the streets. Or is that their fault as well? Is it a 6-year-old's fault that instead of learning in school, he is kept at home? Or is the problem that local governments and state politicians had such little regard for the predominantly black inner city schools that they felt they could ignore complaints of heating in schools dating back to 2015? And conservatives would rather lambast and blame the black community whenever an issue of police brutality or a spike in crime happens in cities like Baltimore, because they couldn't care less about the reasons why more black kids in Baltimore are in the streets instead of school. For them, it's a lot easier to just pretend that it has nothing to do with the systemic discrimination that weighs black communities down, so that whenever social problems inevitably arise, they can fall back on their "what about black on black crime" party trick. It's disgusting. No kids should be forced with the choice of freezing or not going to school at all. Now, if you want to help, Aaron Mabin and his colleagues have put together a crowdsourcing page at GoFundMe.com/WeNeedHeat in our public schools, and they've already raised $50,000. This is not an issue within the black community. This is a countrywide systemic issue. Follow me on Instagram at Francis M. Maxwell, and on Twitter also at Francis M. Maxwell. Like and share the video. Continue.